Greetings and welcome to Office Hours with Dr. G. I'm your host, Dr. G, and I'm so glad that we can keep our appointment. Now, tonight's guest is absolutely no stranger to Office Hours with Dr. G. You know him if you've been with me for any length of time.
Really?
I'm talking about Dr. Botanica, who began studying herbology and nutrition at the age of 10 and began a serious search for a cancer cure after learning of his father's cancer diagnosis. When his father transitioned that same year, the medical professionals' failure to cure him ignited a deeper interest in alternative medicine in Dr. Botanica. After a career in corporate America and radio ended, Dr. Botanica opened the first of 3 health food stores called Rootz. The same year, he met Dick Gregory and the man who would become his mentor in Oriental Medicine, Dr. George Love. Dick Gregory and Dr. Botanica shared many of the same interests and were both natives of St. Louis. Dr. Botanica attended the International College of Traditional Chinese Medicine in New Mexico. He earned a PhD in health science from Claremont University. He received a certification from the National Certification Commission for Acupuncture and Oriental Medicine. And since 1998, he has earned certifications and training certificates in complementary and alternative medicine. Dr. Botanica co-authored and published his first book in 2005 entitled Medicine, the Causes and Solutions to Disease, Malnutrition, and the Medical Sins that are Killing the World. In 2019, he published his second book entitled Stealing a Woman's Treasure, dedicated to women who lost the battle with cancer and women who are not able to find answers for chronic and degenerative diseases in Western medicine. He is in the process of publishing Whole Foods, the Miseducation of the Health Nut, and Nutrisins, the Standard Dietary Sins, and as well a rewrite of medicine entitled Medicine. Dr. Botanica has helped numerous people successfully address chronic and degenerative diseases. He has appeared on talk shows, including special radio appearances with the late health guru Dick Gregory, who once said of Dr. Botanica, he is one of the greatest minds of health and healing, and I would trust him with my life. Now, tonight, Dr. Botanica returns, and he's going to be talking about the youth, which is near and dear to his heart. He's going to make a presentation entitled Youth, Saving the Foundation of a Nation. Welcome to Office Hours with Dr. G.
Thank you, Dr. G.
Yeah,
and I guess to the Most High.
Listen, folks are probably going, "Where's Dr. G? And why does she sound like that? And why wasn't she here last week?"
We're only human.
We're only human. Dr. G has been under the weather for now going on 2 weeks. But we decided to go on with tonight's broadcast. Last week, I absolutely, positively could not talk. I could not have this conversation. So I ask you all to bear with me. I'm in the process of healing. Thanks to Dr. Botanica. Thank you so much for all of your holistic medical and Chinese medicine expertise of which you have unleashed upon the good Dr. G. And even though there are other things that, will detect what's going on, when you get home, we have to make this disclaimer. It is not the virus.
Absolutely.
It is absolutely not the virus. And the reason why I'm not going to let you guys see me today, besides the fact that I'm all up in my head, is because I developed a little nasty little thing under my nose that I have to get healed from. So I probably won't come on camera for the next 2 or 3 months. I don't know, Doc. Well, once I can put some makeup on it.
It'll heal sooner than that.
Yes, Doctor. Somebody, Soul Education said Doctor Botanica is amazing, and he absolutely is, y'all. He knows his stuff. He knows what it is, what it takes to get us where we need to be. And there are many of you. I appreciate the fact that many of you have actually reached out to Dr. Botanica for various and sundry diseases that you have. Come across or have experiencing in your body, and he has been able to or is in the process of assisting you in ameliorating and mitigating whatever it is that has tried to take over um, um, your body and your will and whatever. So I appreciate you, Dr. Botanica. But tonight, I mean, you're always talking. We talk a lot, so you're always talking. And y'all have to forgive me. I'm gonna probably be sucking on Ricolas and drinking water, and blowing my nose throughout this. But I'm gonna try to put myself on mute when you're talking, or when I have to do that. But you talk a lot to me when we speak about your desire to do something for the children, and the fact that we all know that children are our future, and what we're seeing today in the last I want to say the last 2 years, and then more recently in the last month or so, because children now are being targeted. I want to say targeted um, for I have to say it. I wish I could put up a piece of paper, but then you'd have to see me, and But they're targeted. We see that, and so you've talked a lot about different things, anywhere from herbs that help children become more academically astute, give them more brain power, and so forth and so on. And now it seems like we really need to get immune boosting. Um, Herbs and medicinals to our children. I used to think, well, grown folks need it, but now, since our children are in the crosshairs on a lot of fronts, they've always been in the crosshairs with regard to schooling. I want to say, we thought we were sending them to get an education, and we thought that's what they needed, but we found out that it was something entirely different that they were getting. So with that revelation, more and more parents are maybe opting for alternatives, homeschooling, private schooling, whatever. But you tonight going to talk about how do we rebuild what has been destroyed, the foundation of the nation, our young people. And I'm going to just go through a few of the points that I know you want to make. And certainly, you in the audience, if there's anything in our, listening audience, if there's anything that you want to, questions that you want to ask, we're going to try to leave some time for you to ask those questions. But one of the first things that you see that is affecting our children is chemical based foods. Could you tell us? Yeah, talk about that, please.
Okay, well, the issue goes back quite a bit, even after the Second World War, when canning started hitting the market. After that, chemists started to incorporate synthetics to save money for the corporation. Uh, Again, you're looking at, as I mentioned many times, white flour, white sugar, synthetic dyes. So I mentioned this before that most people, particularly I would say, and this is just in my opinion, let's say about maybe 30, 38 on down, okay, maybe 40 on down, okay, have really never been introduced to real food, never consumed real food, but bulk matter, okay, that appears to be food, that tastes like food. However, if you put it under the microscope, it's totally different. The chemistry found under that microscope, you will see is actually not found in nature. The molecular structure is totally different. So even during gestation, the 9 months, the mother, because she's not informed, not educated on what real food is, what nutritional science is, that offspring is developing on things that are synthetic. You know, the fluoridated water, uh, the fast food, the adulterated food. So, the obstetrician, because they've been indoctrinated with a mechanical methodology, they they're less informed. So, again, uh, one cannot teach what one doesn't know. So they put them on, these synthetic prenatal vitamins, and there's no bona fide education on what this, during the pregnancy, what should be consumed. And so, and with our community, among our people, as you know, there have really never been any health food, quote unquote, health food stores in the community. So, we buy canned goods, we buy, dairy products that have been homogenized, synthetic cheeses, never taught what to eat, how to combine the food. So, as time goes on, you see this child growing and developing. However, they're growing and developing on the brain doesn't really thrive. Okay, it survives because you're giving this child, or not child, but this offspring, MSG unknowingly, refined sugar, fluoridated water, candies, and things like that. I won't mention the brand names because of trade agreements or whatever, intellectual property. But you see the snacks, corn chips, and things like that that are that contain mostly synthetics. Not to mention nowadays genetically modified corn, genetically modified potatoes, and so too many carbohydrates. So you look in our community, among our people, you see a child that's normal weight proportion, but by the time they reach 8, 9, 10 years old, you can see the manifestation of obesity. You can see the apathy. You can see the lack of performance. When I was growing up, my mother and father were very mindful of what I consumed. I didn't even start eating fast food probably until I was about maybe 17, because we just didn't have access to it. We went home and ate. I was an athlete. I was a baseball player, and when we after practice, that's what we did. Went home. We didn't go to a Golden Arches. We didn't go to a restaurant. We didn't go to get some fried chicken or whatever. We went home. However, today we the mother and the father, they pacify their offspring with going to these drive-throughs and getting them these nuggets with the little games to appease them. The synthetic drink, which contain toxic dye, and it is fluoridated. So we buy, you end up buying snacks that are like chocolate, for example. Most people think that when they go to a standard grocery store, they're buying like a candy bar, and they feel that, or they believe that they're consuming chocolate. However, it's a confectionery. It's not real chocolate. It's confectionery. So, as time goes on, as the child develops, the brain becomes stagnant. Okay, they don't have the cerebral metabolism is not maximized like in the, say, for example, the Asian community. The Asian community followed their own ancestral diet. The Eastern Indian people followed their own ancestral diet. The Mexicans followed their own ancestral diet. How we don't have a culture, we don't follow ancestral diet. We follow the standard American sad diet that is totally refined. So you cannot develop a superior mind when your brain is clogged with MSG, when you have, things that cross the blood-brain barrier to slow down stagnation. They don't get enough essential fatty acids. not enough hydration. And so we wonder why our offspring cannot perform, even though, the educational system was not intended to enlighten and enhance the, empowerment by any means, thanks to Frederick T. Gates and John D. Rockefeller. However, when you're in school, as far as the academic performance, you notice that these other cultures they would excel. And it's not that our offspring is incapable, because we have a superior mind, we have a superior make. But because of the diet, we're not able to perform. This young girl or young boy is not able to perform at their maximum potential, because they're consuming foods that have MSG, and MSG is masked under many different names. They're not getting adequate breakfast. They're getting maybe a donut or something sweet, something refined. And next thing you know, this child, day in and day out, they're not really getting food. So they become, they're not as energetic today. They're more hyper, but not as energetic as we were. Our minds back in the day were very sharp, very, very sharp. You look at, for example, someone like Fred Hampton. At 21 years old, how articulate he was, how superior, how creative he was at that age. Okay. So, one of the things that I had been advocating since I opened my first health food store in 1994 is for parents to really invest in not Nike, not anything that, that's synthetic, anything that really is not valuable to the mind, body, and spirit, but invest in their health, invest in a food state supplement, invest in organic produce. But instead we pacify our offspring with all these synthetic and artificial things, like my kid already wear, Nike, they wear the best clothes, but are they eating the right food? Okay. They're not eating the right food. And you can see that in all across the country in the neighborhoods, because there's no health food stores, there's no Trader Joe's or, Whole Foods and things like that, or just a mom and pop health food store. So they are unknowingly subjugated, by the convenience stores, and they go to the grocery store and don't know what to buy because they were never educated on nutrition or nutritional science. So our children are really suffering. We're basically are not giving them actually what they really need during their growth and development from, at the time they were born. When you're looking at synthetic milk or soy milk, you're looking at what is the underlying cause of these beta males or men or young boys that have feminine characteristics. This is because of a hormone imbalance. So they're consuming soy or hidden soy. They're consuming chemicals that elevate estrogen. These little girls are consuming foods that elevate estrogen. And as a matter of fact, Asiatic women all over are drowning in estrogen. So, but this was already proven. Go ahead.
May I ask, what does a proliferation of estrogen in a female, what types of illnesses or ailments might come about as a result of a overproduction of estrogen? I know in a male, because we're seeing more male, breast cancers and so forth in males and so forth, but in a female. And my second question before I go is, where the testosterone, is there anything that increases that in females? Since we're seeing so many, there's a lot of, and I don't know if you're talking about the stuff that happens with the mind. I'm looking on your list, but there are a lot of subliminal messages for people to make, the switch, to go this way and, do, men with men and women with women. And it's very prevalent now. It's getting younger and younger that you see portrayed. But is there anything in the foods that are being consumed that maybe increase or make that type of those types of decisions more, you know, evident, or make it more of a possibility because of what they're eating?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, it's in the food, it's in the dairy products, it's in the all commercialized foods that contain synthetic chemicals have the ability to proliferate what they call xenoestrogens, synthetic estrogens. And you know, like so there's a couple chapters in the book, Stealing a Woman's Treasure, that puts an emphasis on that. Is a lot of this is coming from the food. And again, during gestation, you know, people are consuming foods that are altering the hormonal balance, you know, between the men and the women. I mean, you're looking at it's all if, you know, in the entertainment business. I mean, you see people that want to have a high pitched voice. They may get a take on a chemical that can maintain a certain level of estrogen or estradiol. Okay, but most of the products that they what people consume now or estrogen driven chemicals, and it will work in reverse with women. Yeah, you're seeing women maybe a slightly higher level of testosterone. It's like, for example, you see women with maybe hair, you know, on the chin and things like that, a deeper voice, well, they may have a higher level of testosterone. But you know, most of the foods today, uh, bovine growth hormone, any petrochemical will mimic estrogen, you know, and so it's not just in the food, but the shampoos, the conditioners, the body care, because you know the skin is the largest organ on the body, so it absorbs these things. So these chemicals have the ability to accelerate the estrogen, and this is why our women are dealing with estrogen dominance. And some women say, well, why don't other women have these challenges, or other people in other communities have, or cultures have this challenge among these extended families, right, of the human race. One of the reasons is basically, again, we don't follow an ancestral diet, an indigenous diet. The Asians, you don't see the Asians in a standard commercial grocery store. You don't see the Mexicans in a standard grocery store. You see maybe a handful. You don't see Eastern Indians in a standard grocery store. They shop at their own store. This is passed on traditionally. And so we don't have, you know, you don't see the crisis there. You see some because of social influence. When you talk about, uh, you know, tendencies, you know, yeah. So a lot of that social engineers create these things, but we have lost the ability to protect our offspring. I mean, I remember back when I was in grade school. As a matter of fact, you can still look it up, kind of off the subject, look it up on the internet on the child molester. We actually saw, you know, they would show us films on how to be aware of the child molester, how to be aware of the homosexual. These are These were PSAs that were actually ran back in the 50s and the 60s, you know, to help our offspring to be aware of this type of perversion. Okay. Along with, you know, again, the diet. I mean, if you look back in the day, I mean, when you bought a, say, if you bought a cupcake 50 years ago, well, you see white flour, I mean, you see flour, dairy, things like that, salt, sugar. Fast forwarded to 30 years later, you're seeing a whole paragraph of ingredients. You know, it's not even real. You know, you're seeing high fructose corn syrup. You know, and you're seeing the candies that are out there. It is not, you know, again, these are chemicals. They're not pleasant snacks. You know, they contain synthetics that alter the endocrine system, which is like your adrenal, your pituitary gland, thyroid, in addition to the estrogen imbalance. Because you're talking about why are so many Asiatic women challenged with fibroids? Why are so many Asiatic women having thyroid surgery? Why are so many Asiatic women experiencing endometriosis? Okay, why is, you know, again, you seeing boys They're not as masculine. Okay, we have lost the alpha male through a combination of food and social engineering. So when you combine these things along with subliminal music and things like that, you're going to get the finished product is not going to be what it's supposed to be. I mean, the average young boy. I mean, we grew up. It's like, for example, being an athlete. I remember, we were in the locker room, for example. I mean, and after a game, if we lost a game or whatever, we won a game, and we're Jonah, we're walking around naked or whatever, talking about women, or we talk about who messed up the play, who dropped the ball, a fly ball or whatever, who choked at the plate when the bases was loaded. We talk about stuff like that. We weren't looking at each other's genitals and behind, And so I remember all that, and that didn't happen in the locker room. Okay, we were men. We were young men growing into manhood. Wouldn't thinking of anything like that. This stuff didn't happen until all this genetically modified food, the social engineering, the different types of music that was promoted. None of this has changed. Even the music, when you talk about Earth, Wind, and Fire that we were listening to, Maze, Al Jarreau, Anita Baker, all these different, Temptations and stuff like that. These, if you go to YouTube and you look at the men, like the Dramatics, the Shy Lights, Harold Melvin and the Blue Notes, those were men on the stage. Strong voice, strong structure, none of this flamboyance, this feminine characteristic, and so you saw men back in the day. Now when you go to a concert, you see frail, you don't see a strong man, up on the stage. You see a frail body with their pants sagging. So we have to turn back the hands of time and look at the timeline as to how in the hell we got behind the 8 ball like this, because that's where we are. We're really behind, way behind the 8 ball.
Would that be where you talk about noise? You do have, you want to just discuss noise pollution. I don't know if the music and noise pollution, or are you talking about some other level of, polluting noise, but would that fall into the category?
Yeah, noise pollution, because it's not music. Again, when you talk about instrumental music that was coming from, again, Earth, Wind, and Fire, the Isley Brothers, you're talking about the Sound of Philadelphia, all that was instrumental music. James Brown, all these different artists playing the music and instruments. You're hearing synthetics now. You're hearing very negative vibrations that actually have a profound effect on the mind, body, and spirit.
Well, there is a comeback. There's a sort of a comeback, if you will. Silk Sonic. You got Anderson .Paak and Bruno Mars and that group. They are making headways because people are hearing music again. They're seeing, they mimic a lot of what you mentioned, like the Temptations moves and the smooth moves, but the sound, and they're playing, and the sound is what I think people, we haven't heard that in such a long. Those of us who grew up in it said, "Oh my goodness, it's back." Those who had never heard it before are like just having conniptions over the sound that we used to enjoy on the regular, because we have been dealing with auto tune and all of this, synthetic, everybody sounding exactly alike, and it's sort of a humdrum, sort of a I'm going to call it more hypnotic sounds, where it's been kind of same kind. Every artist comes out with the same basic kind of music and sound that you're like, okay, just a few different words, but you don't hear a difference. And then now this Silk Sonic, I think with the help of Bootsy Collins, which is taking us back to when music was music. And all of a sudden, and the reason why I'm saying it is because so many people are like having, like, wow, they're having orgasms over this music because they haven't heard music in such a long time that sounds like what we used to hear before, auto tunes and all of the stuff, when people didn't have to really have a voice, just a look, and they make you sound good.
Well, when you look back again, as you know, I worked in radio as an announcer, disc jockey, and talk show producer because that was my minor in school, broadcast journalism. And I worked for a few radio stations, including Country Western, which was my first gig at the time. But yeah, I saw the transition. I mean, it's like when you had songs like "A Mighty People," like by Earth, Wind and Fire, or "Keep Your Head to the Sky," Devotion, Michael Jackson, the Jackson Five, things like that, and you had a very strong clique among our people back then. So someone in the higher echelons of the oppressor, on the oppressing level, say, "Hey, we got to stop this," because I remember when I worked in radio, and my programming director had said, "Hey, we're getting ready to change the format. We're getting ready to get into programming." And he said, "Well, this is not the type of programming this is going to be controlled by the people that are going to basically own our stations now." And they again these corporate powers started buying up all the Asiatic owned and operated radio stations. There were some cities they had even eliminated jazz. It started getting into more radical music. I mean, even when you talk about even going into hip hop, you talk Chuck D, KRS-One, Flavor Flav, Dead Prez, all these different people that were making good hip hop music, and then you transcend from good hip hop, Curtis Blow, to gangster rap. So what were they were trying? What were they trying to do? The objective is to create a radical culture to the point we hate ourselves. They promoted self-hatred within the music that's promoted. This is why you have so many young people, uh, killing one another. That's the hype. That's the cool. Instead of the disrespect toward the Asiatic woman. That's the hype. That's what's in. To call a woman a bitch or whatever, things like that. That's cool. Back in the 70s, you wouldn't having it. We wouldn't having that. And another thing, among the Albion community or among the Mexican community or among the Asian community, if you had artists promoting that type of music, they would be shut down. Why is it that we tolerate? The problem with us is we tolerate these things. We don't stand and say, "Hey, shut that stuff down." Okay? That's the problem. We have to have men in position to take the position of men and women. They say we ain't having that. Because you have, again, you look at what has happened to our young people. And I'm not going to blame it all on the Albion or the higher echelons of oppression or the corporations. We have to take responsibility and ownership into that. Okay, it's like three young people were killed in an accident. We talked about that, and this kid was driving, extremely fast at high speed. That could have been prevented had they had the appropriate upbringing and philosophy. Another thing was missing is that we did not grow and develop on the philosophical foundation. Philosophy grooms and shapes a society. Okay, even if you go into Aristotle, Socrates, Imhotep, I mean, all these different forms of philosophy, Buddha, philosophy is very key. And that was one of the missing links. We just get up in the morning, we don't say a prayer, we don't connect with nature. We have lost total connection with nature. We don't sit around and take our offspring to in the woods and look at wildlife, teaching them about like the wildlife, the geography, just basically getting them out of that chair looking at a damn Xbox. I see so many people, because I was also a teacher as well. I see so many parents, buy these Xboxes. So you combine things like all these different radical things, subliminal messages, and you're giving them toxic food in addition to that, they're compromising their thought, their freedom of thought. No philosophy. And again, this generation and generation before has lost total connection with nature. I mean, it's oblivious. So that's so we got a lot of cleaning up we have to do. We have to start taking ownership. So when you see a sister having a child, after she has a child, she's back at the club having another child. After she has that child, she's back at the club again. We have to stop that. We have to. I had one son, and one of the things I taught him is how to be a gentleman. When I separated and divorced, my son, my children did not see me bringing women in my home or my apartment at the time. Never saw me. And I've always instilled, be a gentleman. He's married, he's a young man, he's married, works and everything like that, trying to maintain a family structure. So because my father would not have it. If I was acting a fool, my father was the type of man, he would probably took me out. I've known other brothers like that who had the same type of father. They weren't having that foolishness like they're having today. So when you look at the formula of radical music, noise pollution, and not to mention noise pollution also, I'm not just talking about music. I'm talking about, I've seen young women curse their 3-year-old out because they couldn't keep up with them. Walk up, why are you taking so, all these different things because they, and so this instills radical damage during that child's growth and development. So they end up acting the same way. So there are some lessons that have been missing during the growth and development of our children. And again, sliding the family stone. If you listen to a lot of these lyrics, baby having babies and things like that. So we have to take ownership. And why children listen to. That's as far as noise pollution. The profanity that's used.
Violence. Yeah, the violence you want to talk about too. The violence and the mass media corruption to me seem to go sort of hand in hand.
Yeah, I mean that radical noise promotes violence. It basically it sets off your adrenal function. It causes neurotransmitter imbalances, serotonin, dopamine, all these different things that are imbalanced. I'm a provider for a laboratory that does neurotransmitter testing, right? And I guarantee you, if you were to do a urine analysis and give it to that lab, as far as and for them to measure the neurotransmitter activity, I guarantee you, it'll be completely off the chart. Because if people were in balance, in Chinese medicine, we focus on the three treasures: the Shen, the Jing, and the Qi. The Shen, the Jing, and the Qi. And in Ayurveda medicine, you focus on the three doshas. And it's about balance. And so when you talk about things that you see on a Xbox machine that promotes violence, you got a gun and you're shooting at the enemy and things like that. This is what it's promoting. Instead of taking the child out to nature and being in harmony with nature, or getting them into a martial art class, whether it be Tai Chi, Kung Fu, Qigong, Aki-Jitsu, or whatever it may be. That's what I value about martial arts. I've been under several different people since I was about the age of 11. And, of course, when we grew up, Bruce Lee was, and Jim Kelly was like the man, and Muhammad Ali was my hero. So I've always been a fan of boxing and martial arts. And, it teaches you some type of discipline because it comes with a philosophy, So when you are at a degree of martial arts, you don't want to get into a fight. you want to try to avoid the fight, you know. But people, they're quick. I was taking a lift about a month ago, and I was talking to, not a lift, but actually took a cab, and there was an 80-year-old man. He was just shaking his head about, you know, these young folks curse like sailors, you know. And he said, I remember when when I was growing up, we got into it with somebody. You have a fist fight, you know, and you friends the next day, and you go your way, he goes his way. You know, same thing when I was growing up. You know, I grew up as the only child. You know, I've been through some battles, you know, and but nobody went home and got a gun and said, okay, I'm gonna kill this mofo. You know, you got your butt whooped. You just, you know, that just is what it is. You know, so so yeah, the violence has been promoted by music. The violence has been promoted by the food that people consume, that these kids consume. You know, the commercialized food has a profound effect on the way the brain really works, not to mention fluoride. You know, so so when you're hearing violent music, you have a tendency to become violent. Okay, matter of fact, I might have mentioned this to you back in 1985. I was invited because I was in media, but I was invited to go to this camp. Okay, and they had taken about 14 gang offenders. They ranged from 14 to 17. This brother had a ranch in New Mexico, and he had, for that whole month, I just stayed the whole month, stayed, you know, maybe a few days. But at the end of that 30 days, all those brothers were different because they only listened to jazz, R&B. They had bonfire. They went hiking, and they ate more of a vegetarian diet. And they were all totally different. But of course, you know, they shut down the program because it did work, you know. But yeah, so we can change this thing around, but we gotta turn down the noise pollution, you know, because that will proliferate violence. You know, again, everybody's on Facebook, everybody's on their cell phone. You know, it's people not toning it down and just trying to reconnect with nature. All we hear is noise, sirens, and things like that. Somebody getting shot. Yeah, you know, that is you know, whether we know it or not, that creates PTSD. You know, and but most of these people don't have a psychological evaluation nor a neurotransmitter test, so they really don't know how much damage is really going on within the body.
Now, some of the Asian nations, I know there. I've seen videos or pictures of what look like hundreds of school-age children all meditating. That at the same time they all shut down. These are little children, and they learn meditation early, and they put them in as just like you have, so people in Mexico would have a siesta at a certain time. These children shut down and they meditate, and they're all in neat rows, because I mean it looks so uniform and whatever. But you see they all have their eyes closed, they're all in the lotus position, and they're all meditating. That
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely. That
that
was
is
yeah.
something that we need to teach not only our children but the adults, because a lot of times that's like that mental timeout. You know what I mean?
Siesta time. It's siesta time. You know, people eating lunch. Again, like you said, between 11 and 1, you should not be consuming food because the ancients know the cardiovascular system is most active. So it requires blood and energy. So when you eat this lunch between 11 and 1, instead of resting and meditating, you're taxing your heart because it has to rush to the stomach to induce peristalsis. When we were younger, we took a nap. It was nap time in grade school. You know, nap time. Put your head down on your desk. You know, that was it. We had recess. We had gym. You know, if you didn't have your gym shorts, you got tanned. You know, because we allowed these people, unfortunately, unknowingly, a lot of children become the ward of the state. And so they took prayer out of school. They took, various forms of discipline out of school. This was all by design. We got our butt tore, but like I said, we come right in our gym shorts or whatever. But we had recess. We were active. You very seldom seen people that were obese. So yeah, we're behind the eight ball, and it's not all the oppressor's fault. We have to take responsibility and ownership. We have to look ourselves in the mirror. What have you done for your offspring lately? What have you done for some other young boy or girl lately? Have you bought them a book or gave them, shared some philosophy? Have you taken any boys fishing or girls fishing? What have you done? We had a lot of people out there. It's always about themselves. And that's why we're getting our ass kicked, because it's always about me. I always stated, because I've been an entrepreneur for a long time, I decided to be an entrepreneur back in the fifth grade, honestly. But the thing is, we have to empower ourselves and do something for some small girl, small boy. Like I said, just you don't even have to necessarily know. It can be a nephew, it can be a niece, down the street. Contribute something to that child or that young boy, young girl's growth and development, and say, hey, this is what I've done. This is my contribution, instead of focusing on yourself. Back in the day, when after the so-called civil rights movement, where people were getting jobs at Boeing, they were getting jobs at Chrysler, Ford, GM, and that those people thought they made it to the promised land. You got the two-car garage, the Cadillac, or whatever. Instead of having that circle of intrigue, had they been on that level of consciousness, say, let's, create something for the future. Let's put our money together and have a cooperative front, so these so-called Arabs won't own all these stores in our own neighborhood and abuse our women. Had they thought about that at the time, we would not be in this situation. Teach a child about Randall Robinson, one of the first Asiatic billionaires, or Reginald Lewis, who wrote the book, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun? Amos Wilson said it best. He said the Mexicans are interested in Mexicanness. The Chinese are interested in Chineseness. The Russians are interested in Russianness. We're the only people that's trying, it's like we're trying to fit in. We have no friends. Let me say that again. We have no friends. And we need to quit lying to our offspring. And you need to give it to them straight with no chasing. Just like the Santa Claus. How our parents used to tell us about Santa Claus. My mom told me when I was 6 years old, ain't no such thing, no damn Santa Claus. I'm your Santa Claus. So we have to stop lying to our kids also. You can't tell your son or daughter that you're a salesman, you're out there selling drugs, or you can't tell a child that you're a sales lady, you out here at the strip club. You got to stop lying to your kids and clean yourself up. You brought them here. It is your responsibility to make sure they have their pants up. Make sure that young lady, that young girl grows up to be a woman. My offspring are not at the level where I would have liked them, but they're all decent people. They're all working and raising their family. I made sure of that, because what I did as a father, I took them all over this country, from the East to West Coast, to museums, and to introduce them to various levels of intrigue. And that's what we have to do. If you have not done that, then you have not done your due diligence.
So you talk about, would that go with what you call failed leadership in the household? Just, the things that our children should be exposed to, or kept from, or corrected over, that we fail to do? I mean, is that under the banner of failed leadership that you talk in the household. Because I'm not talking about outside the house, because I think everything begins in the home. But there's so many dysfunctional households, that I wonder, we have children who are so had their mothers and who've had their children so young that they never had a chance to grow up themselves. And so they have the responsibility of raising sons and daughters, and they themselves don't feel like they were raised as a into adulthood themselves. So you see a lot of frustration and a lot of still wanting to, go out and kind of do one's thing, or a tendency to lose one's cool, so to speak, to blow your top, because out of frustration of having to be responsible for doing something that you've never been properly prepared to do.
And that is, as the old cliche, it takes a village to raise a child. And but again, we in our community, we've been so divided. When I grew up, I mean, again, if your parents didn't chastise you, rest assured the brother next door or the brother across the alley is going to, and they'll take you home. Hey, I kicked his ass because he was out of line. That's the way it went down, at least in my neighborhood.
And then you
And
get it again. And then you get it again at home.
and so if you find these young girls that are 14, 15 to have, I mean, we need to have community centers. But again, we have no friends. You know, we know all the finance during the Reaganomics was taken. We had junior achievement. We had in our area, we had Operation Brightside, where where grants were put out there for these 14, 15, 16-year-old young people to get jobs cleaning up the street, but they would take home, about $200 a week. So they have money, so they wouldn't have to get out there and hustle. During Reaganomics, all that stuff was wiped out intentionally. So we should have stepped up and created our own foundation, which we still need to do right today. We don't need to depend on anything dealing with government, to be, in my opinion. We don't need them, just like we never needed desegregation. As you know, I'm from St. Louis, and there's a school called Sumner. Okay, well, in Dick Gregory's from that school. His brother Ron, the Fifth Dimension, Arthur Ashe, people like that. The first four-star Asiatic general, Roscoe Robinson, all from Sumner. Okay, so I asked Dick's brother one day at a alumni. I said, man, I would see all these people in their 70s and 80s. Like, man, I said, what was going on back that time? These people are so successful. He said, oh, that's easy. He said, when we all you saw was progress around our school. You saw we would call it the Black Nursing School, the Black Law School, Homer G. Phillips, which is worldwide famous. You had Asiatic doctors there that can perform, that can save. I mean, they were very well known for gunshot wounds. What the Europeans or Albions couldn't do, they could do. So he says all they saw. They saw people on the tennis court playing tennis, people dressed in suits or whatever. He said that's all they saw. So, when you see that type of surrounding in that environment, you're like, hey, this is what I'm supposed to do. But if you go
That's what you
outside,
produce. Yeah, that's what you produce. That's a
right.
I'm trying not to talk a lot, but it brought to mind when you said that, the story in the Bible where, the horse, the cows, the cows, spotted cows and so forth. And so when they were mating and watching the spotted cows, they produced spotted cows even though the two of them weren't spotted. In other words, it shows you that what you focus on and what you see is what you become and what you manifest. And what you're saying is that everything around that school was something. It was positive. It was uplifting and upwardly mobile activities, which they could not help but do. But if they were sitting, like, say, my elementary school was across the street from a tanning factory. You see what I mean? And turns out later on we found out that of course, the tannic, the acids were carcinogenic. So no wonder a lot of people living in that area eventually got cancers and so forth. But all you see is dirty, stinky, smelly, tanning. I'm going to call it liquids flowing outside, and no. And then when urban renewal came through, and they tore everything down. But by that time, you know what I mean. We were watching from kindergarten to sixth grade, nothing. Like you're looking at like a hard knock life type situation just because of what you saw. You know what I mean? And then they, busing, they finally took our children out to the suburbs. But a lot of times our schools were sitting in the middle of places that gave no hope as to, you could get out of here and you could do better because there was no better to see. You know what I mean? And so, I mean, I'm not saying that busing was the best thing to do, but to build up and bring positive, development around the children would have been the best thing to do, to give them right in their own backyards something to look at and to aspire to. But what we had in my high school, for instance, was teachers who looked like me, like us. Most of the teachers, we had, Albions, but most of the teachers, they looked like us, and they became like our parents away from home, and they cared about how we would, our lives would turn out. And so that it was all right back then, in those. I graduated in 1973. And so coming up, in the 50s and 60s in school, the teachers could be like the neighbor you said. If they had to discipline you, your parents weren't going to march to the school and trying to fight the teacher for disciplining you. They realized that we were in their hands when they were working and toiling and so forth. And if we did something to warrant that, that would be the only reason why a teacher would discipline us anyway. It wasn't like these young right out of college, Albion saying, well, I just want a job, and they're not too much older than the very children that they're supposed to be teaching. So there's no respect there. So, we had that type of thing going for us in our, they weren't segregated schools, but we weren't being bused back then. You know what I mean? So we saw people who looked like us that were doing good. They wore the suit to the nice clothes, and we honored them. And even to this day, the ones that were still living, invite them to the class reunions. But I'm just saying, a lot of the children don't have that. They don't have that kind of, the people that are teaching them are not much older than them, don't have any connection to them, don't, all they really want to do is get their paycheck. And that's one of the things, like, but now we know they're following, the Gates and Rockefeller plan, which actually has no basis of preparing our children for the future. So yeah, we have to do our own thing.
Yeah, it's just like the medical. I mean, would you really trust this generation that has a title MD? They don't have nearly the wit that medical elite, even though they were indoctrinated with a mechanical methodology, they don't have near the wit that doctors had 40 years ago. Because they're social platform driven. They have lost total connection with nature. You know, as you know me, I'm my own doctor. I cut myself severely last week because I had a glass in my hand that shattered, and it cut me to the bone, and I needed stitches. But because I'm a survivalist, I knew how to manage that and take certain enzymes and a certain Asian formula that stopped the bleeding immediately. We had just have to teach our children just about uh, you know about survival. Again, we have to spend more time teaching them the things, because as we teach, we learn. So we need to invest in books. We need to invest in field trips. And again, I've taken children on trips. Not too long ago, had taken my grandchildren on the trip, to Chicago. Because I wanted them to get out of that environment. So, but I don't care if it's mine or not. If I had the means, I would. One of the things that I enjoy is I enjoy seeing children or offspring happy. I enjoy being able to provide them with something that can really build their self-esteem. Because I'm not money driven. I'm one of those brothers that you can put $10 million on the table. I will never sell out my people nor sell my soul. That's what Dick, as you know, Dick and I were close for 24 years, and that's the foundation he stood on as well. You couldn't buy me. I'm not for sale. My concern is our offspring, because they're being destroyed, by design, and unfortunately, some of us are just letting it happen. You're only going to live once. Why not be a revolutionary? Okay. None of us, nobody's going to get out of this alive, especially now being in the end game. So, we have to really focus on and come to the reality. Again, we have no friends. We have no friends, and so I remember back in the day, we were glad to go to school. When I was in high school, you saw some brothers carrying suitcases, and you had brothers that were athletes, you had brothers that were businessmen, in high school, and then you also had your thugs, things like that, so but the game has totally changed, and one of the things, and not to mention, the household toxicity. We got to clean up the house. We got to teach our children. What about home economics? We don't think about home economics. Really teaching your offspring how to cook, teaching your offspring how to survive, how to turn something into nothing, or nothing into something rather, and really doing things. And it's kind of funny when you look at remember the Waltons, and they would tell everybody good night, and but you look at the Amish, I travel all over this country and I see the Amish people, how closely knit they are. You don't see them using profanity. I'm like, what does it take for us to get back into loving our children, our offspring enough to make a sacrifice, loving our offspring enough to say, hey, I'm sick and tired of seeing these young, these young people doing without, and teaching them about simplicity, and so these are some of the things we have to do, in addition to always going back to the diet. And one of the things that and one of the things that I was able to do, I was able to help many children enhance their growth and development and their cerebral metabolism, because there are products out there. There's, matter of fact, I guarantee you, if you would have a health food store in an Asiatic community and you raised a child, or from infant onward, and that's the only thing they had access to is health food, real food, no noise, positive music, positive frequency, and a loving environment, would be in this situation right now. And you can change the future if you're willing to change yourself. And and not to mention the mass media corruption. Turn off the TV. Turn off the TV. I've seen people have a big screen TV in every room. It's ridiculous. And the TV is really watching you because it's a, internal camera. So they can see everything that you're doing anyway. So turn the TV off. Introduce your offspring to nature, to natural life, and focus on the brain development. Because there are supplements out. Matter of fact, there's something called the BioStraff Challenge, and I've been taking BioStraff since I was on and off since I was 17. It actually enhances cerebral metabolism, which is blood flow, glucose, oxygen to the brain, and it actually enhances the academic performance. And like I said, and that's one of the things I encourage parents or the mother and father to do, is to really invest in their diet. Don't invest in the clothes that they wear. You're spending 50, I mean, anywhere from $100, $150. Invest in organic produce. Invest in supplements, invest in field trips, invest in books, introduce them to various historians. It can be, whether it be John Henry Clark, Taj Tariq Bey. I mean, introduce them to someone. There are many pioneers that dedicated their life, and this is what they did. They weren't interested in the flamboyance and the accolades. They wanted to get the job done. And that's what makes my practice so profound, because a lot of my training came from the pioneers that were humble, and, and some of them were Albions, but they were very, very humble, and they wanted to get the work done. They wanted to get, really learn the science. And I was able to acquire that information. That's why Dick had always would refer people to me, because I'm dedicated, to what I do. And again, with the women, our young girls, when your daughter is experiencing her cycle at 8, 9 years old, research that, because that's abnormal. She was consuming foods that elevate estrogen. And little do most women know, the earlier you come on your cycle, the greater your risk of getting cancer, breast cancer, because your body has to deal with all that estrogen all those years. And as you said, I mean, back in the day, you see sisters that still almost had a flat chest by the time they were 13, 14 years old. Now you're seeing girls 9, 10 years old of 36C, in some areas, because of the chicken. For whatever reason, we cannot let that chicken go. And we talked about blood type, and if you're type B, you should always avoid chicken. It is detrimental to you. So we never.
I hear you, Dr. Botanica.
So we got to really watch what we consume. I mean, fluoride. I mean, how many people out there are still using fluoridated toothpaste or giving it to their children? You're brainwashing their children. That's why when I put that chapter in the book called Fluoride, How America Really Got Brainwashed. And I truly believe, and I feel, one of the underlying cause of the sheeple-mindedness is fluoride. Because you have functional alcoholics, you have functional drug addicts and things like that. They're still able to follow their directives. But there's something in the brain, in the hippocampus and the occipital lobe, that's responsible for the capacity, freedom, and thought, that's compromised. And the underlying cause of that is sodium fluoride. So we went to the industry show that this guy was trying to promote it at a health food industry, at a health food event.
And he was Asiatic.
Yeah. So, but yeah, fluoride, if you do the research, I mean, fluoride has a lot to do with the way people act, because you can bring them, you can present something to them that makes sense, and they're like out to lunch, but fluoride is not only in the water, it's not only in the toothpaste, it's in the commercialized food, along with the GMOs, but it's big business. And we don't have to get emotional about it. It's just business. But we have to learn how to navigate around this type of devilment that's within among these corporations. But so like I say, we have to get back to nature. Full force. Again, failed leadership in the household. We have to take responsibility as men, whether we have offspring or not. Influence, mentor someone. Find. I mean, again, it could be a neighbor, it could be a nephew, it could be a niece, but study yourselves. As Noble Drew at least once said, and continue to study yourself. But you can also pass that on to the younger people. We need to help them to love themselves, but we first have to love ourselves and our people enough to make that change. That's another thing we're lacking is self-love. You know, I want for my brother want what I want for myself. I can really because just wealth doesn't really appeal to me like that. You know, uh, my main concern is our offspring. You know, uh, when you see, I was downtown maybe about 2 months ago, and I saw several families down there that were sleeping in tents, and I saw these little 5, 6 year old little boys and little girls running around, and they don't even know what's going on, but they're living in a tent downtown across from City Hall, where there's millions and millions of dollars from traffic tickets, parking tickets, you know. And I'm like, how dare you see these people living on the street, and you mean to tell me you can't acquire a building for these people, that you have to see 5 and 6 year olds sleeping out in a tent with their mother? That's a damn shame. We live among thieves and cowards, and we need to start teaching them that the Albions are the receiver. The Albions today are receivers of stolen goods, as Dr. Amos Wilson said. Yeah, you may have not had anything to do with what went on back in the day, but you're the receiver of stolen goods. Just like with the hemp, how in the world you going to charge somebody a license, to $10,000 to apply, and $150,000 for the license to grow something that's natural on our land? But again, if you don't talk about it, you don't do anything about it, it's going to continue. Same thing with the violence. Same thing with the fibroids, the endometriosis among our women. You see a young girl that's coming in a cycle, learn how you can improve her health. The sanitary napkins, for example. All commercialized sanitary napkins are made from old newspaper and trash. They chlorinate it, make it look white and pristine, and put it right back on the shelf. Plus, it contains dioxin. When I was in school, I had an Asian woman ask me, "Why do your women get PMS? We don't get PMS. Why do they have fibroids? We don't get fibroids." Because they follow their own ancestral diet. You don't see an Asian picking up hypertension medication. You don't see an Asian in a dialysis center. You don't see an Asian picking up, diabetic medication, because they have enough sense to follow their own ancestral diet. You won't see them in the standard grocery store. You barely even see them in the Whole Foods, So we have to start getting back to the grassroots and teaching your children how to grow their own food. Getting them into microfarming. That's going to be the next multi-billion-dollar industry anyway. Microfarming, because people are sick and tired of being sick and tired. And as they're gentrifying, I sent you a animated photo. That's what they're doing. As they're gentrifying, they're going to be putting gardens on top of the roof. Zabian is going to be growing, getting into microfarming. We need to get into microfarming, and teaching our offspring how to grow, how to deliver and give life. Instead of getting them off the damn football field and taking them on a trip, taking them to a construction site, learn about masonry, learn about architecture, oceanography, things like that, things that give life. We got enough damn football players out there, and these grown ass men, because I was an athlete. I was a very good athlete. But when my son, I did not force my son to play football or baseball, because I knew the racism that I went through at the time. Okay, when I was in spring training. So what I experienced in spring training for the Oakland A's, I would not pass that on to my son, and in college. So we have to get them into things that promotes life and longevity and wealth. And it's not necessarily on the football field or basketball court. I like all three sports, but again, we're in the wrong direction. So there, you know, but it sounds like I'm venting, but I have just a very dear passion for our offspring. Teach them history. We owe it. We owe it to them. We owe it to our ancestors to teach our offspring history. It's just like that the ancient uh, Kemetic symbol Sankofa. You can't see the future until you know the past. Can't evolve in the future the right way unless you look into your past. You know. Uh, the next one will be home economics and cooperative economics. Again, learning to work together. Getting if you got 6 people in one area growing okra and tomatoes, you got another area growing potatoes, squash. Learning them about international trade. I'm sorry, about trade and developing business relationships. At an early age. And you see things start manifesting once you really get down. This goes like you ask yourself, where are you going to buy your next meal? You're buying it from the oppressor. Okay.
And those, things are getting so scarce, and I don't know how it is all over, but you can see the shelves are getting emptier. The cost, the products packaging is getting smaller. The prices are getting higher, and it's just a matter of time before, if you don't know how to grow your own stuff, you know, you won't have to worry about, losing weight or anything, because you're not going to, you might be eating the dog and the cat. No, I won't. No, I won't eat y'all. I won't eat y'all. But but I'm just saying, it's getting to the point, because we have been so dependent on what they've supplied, that I always look at it lately of calling it the Lord giveth and the Lord taketh away syndrome. We've been given all of this crap, and we become indoctrinated and addicted to all this crap, and then it's like, just like sometimes a drug dealer, you get it free, but in our case we just been indoctrinated in it, and then they snatch it away, and then how you going to live? Well, I do know it's some stuff that I can't say on here, that I was listening to, that made a whole lot of sense about what's going on with the thing that we're going through. And it was that the first thing has such and such in it, and a little bit of this and a lot of that, and it does something, and then 8 weeks later, when your white blood cells would be redoing their thing, you're going to get a second that's going to do some more damage, and then you're going to time it, and then you're going to boost that up a few, and by the time you do that, you've lost your own ability, your body has, to create, what I'm talking about, because you're a doctor, to create those cells on its own. So now you're going to become dependent upon being boosted up to maintain a semblance of. And then by the same token, if you have any comorbidities or any issues, those things, because you have not the various cells that would have been protecting you anymore, that's where it's going to target. That's where inflammation, and that's where disease and all that stuff is going to happen. So these things are real. And so we need to learn. We need to learn how to make our own stuff. Go to our own health practitioners like yourself. We can't trust anything. I don't trust anything that's coming out, because I figure, we can't get you this way, we'll put it in this, and we'll put it in that, and we'll put it in the other, and we'll still get you.
Yeah, and the thing
I know
is,
I'm talking double talk, but I'm trying to be, what I'm doing.
right. The thing is, what they have done over time is marginally disconnected the Asiatic people from nature. That's the bottom line. They disconnected us from natural creation. There is no way, when you go into the history of all the devilment from putting smallpox in the blankets. People lost their damn mind. I mean, I'll be honest, I'll just be frank. They lost their damn mind. They lost their ever loving mind. I mean, it doesn't make sense. I mean, the people that I talk to or come across, I'm just saying, you just lost your damn mind. But that shows you it's like that old saying, those that are unaware that they're unaware. That's what they are. And these are functional so-called intelligent people, degree people. I mean, it's unbelievable how they allow themselves to be duped, by such nonsense. Not knowing that vitamin C, vitamin D, exercise, qigong, whatever you want to do. The immune system is immaculate, and the Creator did not make any error. When you talk about macrophages, you talk about T helper cells, B cells, lymphocytes, cytokines, CD4, CD8 cells, very sophisticated elimination system, liver, gallbladder, and unfortunately, a lot of our women lost their gallbladder because, again, the medical doctors, they're so indoctrinated. They're a reactive professional, not a proactive professional. They're an indoctrinated, reactive professional. Because there's no way you should have your gallbladder removed. Okay. No way you should have all these conditions our women are challenged with. So apparently, like I say again, it's we have to get back to natural and universal law. And this is what has happened. And people amazingly, they think things are back to normal. No. Once you have taken on that abomination, because that's what it is, an abomination, you are doomed.
Absolutely.
Because that's what it is. It is outside. First of all, we don't even have enough sense to ask, wait a minute, did this come out of nature? No, it did not. It did not come out of nature. So if it didn't come out of nature, why in the hell would you allow something to remedy what was created by man in the first damn place? I see people have professional jobs, and they have, again, nice cars, nice homes, wealthy. They've lost that ability to use the high science of just common sense. Ask the right question before you even do. And then not to mention knowing your rights. I've seen so many people taking on this abomination because they felt that their job was on the line.
But what about the children? What about the fact that now 5, little children are now and parents are taking their children to the slaughter? You know what I mean? That's what I see.
They need their ass kicked. They need to be put on a cross, and people need to just have at it on their ass, butt naked. Because they don't have enough damn sense to just read. You got the World Wide Web. All you got to do is the research. Type in the right statement or whatever you want to do and start cross-referencing. They need to, these people have lost man. You have killed your children, or you don't know, you have no clue. And again, we need to, and that's one of the reasons I want to do the show also, is because we need to protect our children in that manner as well. Why would you ruin a child's life like that? When I was in school, I found out about, the adverse effects of inoculation. My offspring and my grand offspring went to school with no problem. Okay. Because there are affidavits. You have rights. You have God-given rights and inalienable, unalienable rights. You know, you have an organic constitution if you learn how to enforce it. But we have to, again, but that's another subject matter, getting out of the 14th Amendment status into your proper person and feel that, again, you're under occupation. You know, I mean, you should really be pissed off. These people have done a job on us, and now, now they're coming along with things like this. I mean, that's why we got to study science. We got to, and as far as diet goes, if you take a food state supplement, you only need to eat once a day. That's all you need to do is eat once per day. You can cut your grocery bill in half. I go to the Asian store all the time. You can feed a family of 4 on $300 a month, easy. Not to mention if you got into growing your own food, okay? You don't need the oppressor's service. You never need it. You certainly don't need it now. We can do for self if we want to. We can make a change if we want to. But again, as long as you have these people out there that are so compromised, allow themselves to be compromised over a note, over fiat, that's the lack of self-empowerment, because anybody, if they wanted to, can be a gardener. You can I go to farmers market all the time and see people, that's all they do is grow produce and sell it. You travel on the train, you see all this farmland and these houses up on this farmland. Those people are they're empowered because all they're doing, remember we talked about Boathouse. And most people know what Boathouse is, the carrot company. Out of Ohio, they were just growing carrots. Just carrots. They started supplying the community, supplying the city, then supplying the state. They wanted to grow the carrots all year round. Next thing you know, they moved to California so they can grow the carrots all year round. This is a multi-billion-dollar company just on one thing, carrots. And they perfected that. Bob's Red Mill's the same way. I'm sure people shopping at health food stores, they know what Bob Red Mills is. Family owned and operated. All they did was focus on grains, different types of grains. I'm like, what part we don't understand? I'm like, you need to go get the book, Why Should White Guys Have All the Fun by Reginald Lewis or either Randall Robinson, Quitting America. Or Dr. Amos Wilson, Blueprint to Black Power. Powernomics by Claude Anderson. I mean, it's not, or Millionaire by Farrah Gray. It's not rocket science. I have never had a student loan, nor have I ever had a business loan. And I've owned 4 health food stores. Whatever I did, to get there, I got there. But I have never, number one, I was turned down, so I got, sick of the nonsense, and being, getting the short end of the stick in corporate America. So I left corporate America at an early age, and so I lived on the street when I was in California, in Oakland. And people that know about Oakland and Richmond, I was on the street for 2.5 months while I was going through school because I ran into a situation that I had to live on the street. I lived on the street when I lost one of my health food stores for 4 months. Didn't ask for a dime. You have to have the ability to pull your own self by your own bootstraps. And when you have the will find a way. And I know that from experience. Even when I was financially struggling, even when my offspring were young, I still found a way to take them to California, to New York, all these different places. Made a way. So the thing is, we have to be determined enough to make things happen, especially right now. Like back in the day, grandma could make something out of nothing. We have to get back to that, but learn how uh, to nourish our bodies the right way. We have to, we have to protect our offspring because they are the foundation of the nation, period. By any means necessary, we must protect our youth. And in order to do that, we need to be mentally competent. We need to be physically strong and spiritually sound. And we need love and unity among one another. And, that's, and there's no compromise with those four things. We have no choice. We're in the end game, and they have been planning all the stuff that's going on. This ain't just, matter of fact, I said about Robert Steiner, 1917, wrote an article that the powers that be were working on a vaccine that would take the soul out of the human. This is 1917. Okay. So the thing is, our people have forsaken the Most High. They have forsaken universal law, Mother Nature, and totally have broke the, separate, just cut the umbilical cord that we had with nature. And again, I don't care what you drive, what type of wheels or alloy wheels you got on your car, you take that abomination, you you can get a nice surprise later on. But this is not a time to be separated. This is not a time, and let me mention this. Research who you finance. Research who you buy from. Because the people that are the very company that you're buying from, they're financing the agenda. I went to a restaurant a few months ago. I had a taste for a shake, treat myself or whatever. But I saw this promotion on these rainbow colors, and they're promoting that particular type of shake. I'm like, they would never get my money. I mean, my fiat. We have to stop patronizing the oppressor. Because if you go and just Google it and type in who owns what, you'll see a huge web and umbrellas of different companies that are associated with one another. And some of these companies have infiltrated the natural product industry. Okay, so we have to we have to elevate our will and our consciousness to grow our own food, period. We have to learn about international trade. We have to learn about international business. The thing is, I've been to many, many industry shows, and people overseas don't care what ethnicity or nationality you are. They want to just do business. This is what's going on. The problem is here in Babylon, on our land. But if you want to do business in Asia, you can do business in Asia. You want to do business in the Philippines, you can do business in the Philippines. You want to do business in Germany? I have accounts that out of Germany, out of Morocco. Not Morocco. Well, in Madrid, Korea. So, and I've met these people at the industry show. They know who you are. We just don't know who we are. We have to make them recognize. But in order to be recognized, we have to recognize ourselves, and we have to come out of the state of denial. We have to ask ourselves, who do we help lately? What have you done for anybody's offspring lately? Have you had a roundtable discussion about a cooperative economic front? Do you study together? Do you read together? I mean, you know, everybody's separate. Everybody's got the best idea or whatever. This is 2021, you know, and we still are divided by everybody. One thing about the Albion, they can be Irish, they can be Bosnian, they can be a hillbilly from the Ozarks. One thing they got in common, they have decided that they must remain in power. I don't know what part we don't understand. You know, I mean, whether we're, you know, like I said again, it's something about competition that I guess we get an orgasm from being competitive, so competitive with one another or trying to outdo one another. And the offspring, the little people are suffering in the process of our stupidity and our ignorance. You know, so that's what we have to do is become discerning and responsible enough to say, hey, tomorrow's a new day. You know, there are many, if you don't know how to garden, you better learn how. You know, I did a yield this year. I hadn't grown a garden in over 20 some years. I had a huge yield. I just got up one day and said, I'm going to grow a garden this year. And doctors, you've seen the pictures of my garden, you know, from things that I grew. It can be done. And you can pass that on to the young people. You know, teach them how to fish. You know, instead of, you know, buying them a fish sandwich, teach them how to fish. You know, teach them how to hunt. You know, not that I'm an advocate of shooting animals either, but for survival purposes. You know, we have to go hiking. We have to get into camping. You know, we have to learn survival skills. You know, I mean, I slept in my car when it was like 15 below zero before, you know, 12 somewhere in there. So we have to learn how to survive, you know, and we have to teach we can't sugarcoat anything with our offspring. We need to be straight up with our offspring and tell them who our friends are and who our enemies are. And don't lie.
And if you were in the habit of, you've been in the practice of perhaps buying them the latest, you know, tennis shoe, whatever that comes out, and, you know, because it's, you know, it's got somebody's name on it and all of these different things, you've got to be straight with them and let them know that those things can't be like that forever, because things are changing. You know, things are absolutely changing, and I think some parents have raised the bar so high with what they given to their children, and their children have not really earned, but they just want them to have from a show standpoint. But what do you do when you're not in that position? Like many have found themselves in the last, you know, 2 years almost, that they're not there anymore, but yet they stress and struggle over not being able to maintain the, you know, the facade, so to speak, of having that, the ability to do that. You're going to have to live with those things, but you still have to be frank and honest with your children. We can't continue like this. Are you going to wear these sneakers, or are you going to eat, or are we going to heat the house in the winter? And things have changed because everything is, you know, hyperinflation is so crazy. I buy, you know, envelopes to send out flash drives, and in the matter of a week or two, I order them a couple times a month. In a matter of 2 weeks, they went up $5. Same envelopes, you know, coming from the same Amazon, and they're, you know, and they went from $12.99 to, you know, $17.99. Like, in a week, what happened? But you see what I'm saying? Everything is changing.
There was a product from OKF. I used to be a distributor of OKF. They're the world supplier of aloe vera commercially, right? They have a 25,000 acre farm in South Korea.
That's going
And
up a lot.
and the again, you know, this can be done. I'm basically in the process of becoming a hemp distributor, not a retailer or wholesaler, but an actual distributor. Uh, one of the strongest kinds that are out there. I won't mention what it is, but if I mean, you start really networking. But the aloe vera, for example, OKF last year, that aloe vera came in a tall container, was $249. That container right now is $479.
Sure is. I just looked at some. It used to be able to get 2 for $5. We were
Yeah,
getting two. It was 2.79 or 2 for $5. Now it's almost 5 for $1.
yeah. I mean, the thing is, I don't know what like I said, the average person, average being is trying to hold on to. I mean, you look at again when I said boathouse, you look at that Korean farm. They focus on one thing. They just grow aloe vera, and they supply the world. So if you want to grow bitter melon, you perfected bitter melon, or we just don't really we take vacations overseas. We spend all our money we may go to Dubai or may go to the islands or whatever, Africa. But yeah, that's I've been to Africa, I've been here and there. But what have you brought back that can benefit you economically? I was at an industry show, and the tree that's over there, the baobab tree, right? And I went to the booth, and I see this baobab, these products. It's Albion
Right.
making millions of dollars off this baobab product. He's got a protein shake, got a superfood drink, and I'm like, it's crazy, and yerba mate. When yerba mate first became very, very popular, which it's a thermogenic, it's a good alternative to coffee too. College students went down there to South America, negotiated with the indigenous people down there, making a killing. David Wolf, and I'm sure most people are familiar with David Wolf,
Yeah.
European Jewish guy, didn't want to work. You look at him on YouTube. He's got frizzy hair. Came up with the concept about superfoods. You know, I mean, it's like, what part don't we are we just just so inundated with sports, with entertainment, with the BT awards or whatever. I mean, that we can't take the time out and study international business and products, the things that. And when you go down, I took a group of young people a long time ago down a grocery aisle, and I asked them, "What do you see?" And they said products. I said, "Well, you don't see just so. What else do you see?" You know. And so I was breaking it down to them. I said, "You see labeling, you see canning, you see the actual product, you see what's in the product, the salt, the other ingredients, the spices, you know." Within that one canned good, there's like 4 or 5 manufacturers, you know. So whether you want to get into canning, labeling, or anything like that, I mean, the opportunity, the answer's right in the grocery store. If you talk about economic freedom, just take a trip to the grocery store. That's all you got to do. The answer's right there. If you want to be economically empowered and so-called free, in addition to your nationality, okay? Uh, and take your offspring, your niece, your nephew, and teach them about economics. Let them listen to Farrah Gray. Get the book Millionaire. How that brother became a millionaire. Who Farrah Gray is, but he's the son of anyway.
Yeah.
Became a millionaire at 14. Buy just buy him a book by the Reginald Lewis books. I mean, Randall Robinson, Blueprint to Black Power. Power Now. Any of those books, that read it to them, and as you share that intrigue with them, you too will learn.
Think and Grow Rich, a black choice, even though they're using the misnomer black, but Think and Grow Rich, a black choice is an excellent book because it takes that classic that was written for the Albions by the Albions, and it gives it a different take.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a very good book. Along with Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor
Rich
Dad.
Dad Poor Dad.
Been around a long time. It's still a good book, a great book. You know, uh, basically introduced him to some level of intellect. Go all the way back to Tony Brown's journal. That brother was very intellectual. And just introduced them to different levels of intrigue, because this is why the Albions of the dark side are in power. They've always had this circle of intrigue, and they, right to this day, they laugh and celebrate how they have gotten over on us as a people. They joke about this stuff at the round table, at their round table anyway. And we need to do the same thing. We need to develop. We need to study them like they study us.
Here's a question that New Deep asks us: do other countries really, in all caps, want to work with black people in America? Really?
Well, they want to work with Asian people that know who they are.
Yeah.
Not black people, because we're not black. That's an adjective, But I've been in the health food industry for 30 years, and I've attended probably well over 100 industry shows, and I've talked to many. Matter of fact, I'll just mention it. Out of Spain, for example, one of the presidents for Vimpocetin, the company that manufactured Vimpocetin, which is the only natural smart drug that was ever approved by the FDA. She was so intrigued by my knowledge about the brain and product knowledge that she wanted me to write a book. I was going through a divorce at the time, so that fell through. She wasn't looking at me because of my copper colored skin. Right now, I represent Genial Day, right?
Right.
These people out of Lithuania, outside of Russia, they didn't care. They looked at me. They said, "No, you're the one." I'm on YouTube right now representing that company. Okay, so they didn't look at me, or this Negro or this nigger or whatever. They don't see that. They want to do business. It's the people here, the colonists here, that's the damn problem. Whatever you want to call them, cracker or whatever, they're the problem. I've talked to people from the Philippines. I've talked to people from Shanghai. I had a gentleman from Peru before this whole thing came out with this craziness, invited me to Peru because he wanted to do business. They were interested in negotiating with the Camu. And for those people who understand what Camu is, it's one of the most sustainable forms of vitamin C. They didn't look at me because I was copper colored. Like, we want to do business because we know you know your stuff. And I know my stuff. Because what separates me to most people, I have phenomenal product. Now, this is why Dick used to say, that's the master.
That's right.
That's why you always used to say he has one of the brightest minds in this country. That's why he endorsed my book. And I take it very serious. I have the rarest end-stage lung cancer case study in the entire Midwest. I have the rarest advanced breast cancer case study in the entire Midwest, when they gave these people less than 5 months to live. So that, it basically, when you elevate your consciousness and your confidence, okay, you don't worry about, life longevity or whatever. You can't be a punk in this life. That's one thing you cannot be. In order for you, they're not afraid of you because they love to fight. So we have to be able to battle on every platform, economics, all the way down to the physical. We have to protect ourselves and our young people. I'm talking about the ones that are just coming out of the womb, not necessarily because most of these people have been so inundated with nonsense. It's almost, you really got to corral them. I'm talking about the 3, 4, 5, 6 year olds that we can still create a whole new generation. Because like I said, when I was in the 5th grade, I decided to be an entrepreneur. Okay. I wanted to come up with my own cartoon company, and my best friend laughed at me. I'm like, no, man, we can do the same thing that these cats are doing with the cartoons, with Popeye and all other stuff. So, we have to have the will, and I don't mean any disrespect to the sport advocate, but we need to get those boys off the football field and on the construction site. We need to learn them how to farm, take them to a farm, take them to the University of Illinois agriculture department and see what these students are doing. Take them to a hemp farm, see what they're doing. I mean, we are, it's like soon as they start lifting this this so-called lockdown, our people went right back to the club, to the tavern, dropping it like it's hot. Instead of getting down to business, say, okay, they did it, they pulled one on us this time, but we got to get down, we got to create this round table and have a discussion. We got to have a strategy. We got to get out of that selfishness. Look yourself in the mirror and ask yourself, what have you done for a young person lately? Have you ever thought about the future of a young person? Have you ever realized that they are the foundation? When you turn 70 and 80 years old, you want somebody to knock you down, rob you, or you want somebody to help you, like back in the day, we used to help old ladies across the street and things like that. I've been robbed before. I've been robbed with sitting in my vehicle at 12:30. I had no business being where I was, but I don't walk around with fear either. 19, 20-year-old held a 40 caliber. I'm like, I just say, what you gonna do? But so they're out there. They're lurking out there, and it's not a game.
And it's going to get worse because they haven't been taught any better. They've been trained by the system that seeks to destroy them and to use them to weaponize them to destroy not only themselves, but, the rest of us. So we do have to get ourselves together. We're coming down to the end of we want to try to keep this slightly under the 2-hour mark so that we can at least have a replay if we wanted to on this. And I just want to say, and I just want to urge you all to reach out to Dr. Botanica, particularly if you have any type of you're going through anything physically, if you're even wanting to learn how to get into fasting, or weight loss, or just it could be minimal, just wanting to get the right nutrients and vitamins in your body, or you may have gotten a bad diagnosis or prognosis before you acquiesce to what Western medicine is telling you got, or you won't, how long you have or whatever. Get a second opinion, get a holistic opinion from someone who has a track record. And sometimes we have a hard time, Dr. Botanica, trusting folk that look like us. We unfortunately, but you are highly skilled, and I know there are several people on this call who've called, who've reached out to you, and you've helped them, and with your knowledge. I mean, I'm one of those ones who really has the benefit of, I can pick up a phone, call you anytime, and you will give me whatever I need knowledge wise, and push stuff in the mail and it's coming to me. But there are others out there that might be suffering from, anything, like even if they got high blood pressure, or if they have high cholesterol or whatever, swollen ankles. It doesn't matter. There's normally something natural that will cure you, and you just need to reach out to the right person. So I urge you to contact Dr. Botanica and get a you do consultations.
Absolutely. And also, like, it's berry season, so we blueberries, give your offspring, give the babies this, give your babies the organic blackberries. I mean, it's, instead of candy, cookies, give them this stuff.
I gotta get mine. I gotta get mine for the 21 day. But yes, so please, 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 thank you so much for getting me to this point, because this time last week, you all know I put up that I wasn't coming on, but I didn't tell you why, but I was down for the count. Dr. G was down. I haven't posted much on Facebook at all. I haven't done anything because I was really, I've been down since Grand Sheik's last show. So the day after his show. So it's been almost 2 weeks. So I'm grateful to the care that you've given me and the things that you put in the mail and overnight it to me, just so that I could, get started on the right stuff that I needed, to boost up my immune system.
Yeah, we're all human. I mean, we all get under the weather. It doesn't necessarily have to be that thing. I mean, you're just a good old.
I knew it wasn't that thing. Yeah. I just got socked
old fashioned common cold,
and then I realized that my air purifier had been off for I don't know how long, and I was like, oh my God, anything could have come through, because I normally had that running like 24/7, and then I finally looked and I said, okay. Red Sheik had my door open, putting a new door on, and I said, he let some cold virus come through my house, and I didn't have my air purifier running. my thing.
We need to take lessons from Grand Sheik, because he's in phenomenal shape at his age. So I'm gonna find out his secret though.
You would pop and doc. Look, I'm sitting here. Here's a bottle of vitamin B12 from Dollar Tree. Dollar Tree.
You might as well get a pebble off the parking lot.
Yeah, you made me throw away a lot of my stuff. You said it was stones. But I want to thank you. Want to thank you all for tuning in, and really appreciate you all, as usual. And hopefully next week I'll be back with another show, another doctor with another subject, and just trying to bring knowledge to you all. Appreciate you all so much. We're gonna tune out. We're gonna log off right now so that we can grab this show and do a replay on it someday. But we have to make sure that it's under 2 hours. So we're gonna do that right now. All right. Thank you. Peace. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. All right.
You made it.
Almost.
Really? Who's she?
Yeah, that's me.